Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Shark, the live stream where we discuss all things pop culture that we love. I'm Final Monkey,
And I'm Caleb.
and today we are continuing to look at some of our favorite comic book runs. This is Jason Aaron's Wolverine and the X Men, and these issues cross over with Avengers versus X Men, A versus X. So we will be discussing that also today. But before we get to all that nonsense, Caleb, how you been doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Um, as far as just life things, I had a blowout last night, and so right now my
Oh,
car is in the shop. So I'm kind of home. I'm glad I work from home, so that way I don't have to worry about that. That's the nice thing. Um, but yeah, that's not going to end up being a huge deal. Other than that, I've been really getting into. Um, I've just been trying to get into like some seminal science fiction stuff. I'm not sure why, but I've watched a couple episodes of the first season of X-Files for the first
hmm.
time, and I'm actually kind of digging it. I watched the first episode of The Expanse, which apparently is, from what I've heard, like the greatest science fiction show of all time, and like the Game of Thrones, but for sci-fi. Um, which I can kind of tell. You know how like whenever Game of Thrones came out, every fantasy show decided it wanted to be Game of Thrones, whether it's with The Witcher or Lord of the Rings, or like everyone wants to be Game of Thrones. I could see how every sci-fi show wants to be The Expanse.
Yeah, yeah, definitely happens.
Um, I I definitely saw a lot of cinematography that I recognized from Picard, so that's it right there. Uh,
Right.
and
Yes.
then I've also been listening to an audiobook of a book called Nine Fox Gambit. It's the first in a trilogy, and essentially, I wanted something akin to Bungie's Destiny, where it is very, very high science fiction while also being very, very high fantasy. Like I don't want a balance. I just want you to turn it up to 11 on both things, kind of like Destiny does. And so I'm listening to this, and I do not understand it. It has something to do with math and like their calendars, like their like technology works on a certain like imperial calendar, and then the enemy, they don't follow the calendar, so their technology works on like a heretical calendar, and
Yeah,
so they
you've
don't
totally
understand.
lost me.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I don't know what's going on, but you know what? I feel like it's one of those things that like once I figure it out, I'm gonna really like it. Like King Crimson in JoJo's Part Five. That's hard to understand, but once you get it, it's a lot of fun. So I'm gonna stick through it at least for this book.
Okay.
But that's really all I've been doing. How about yourself?
Well, I just want to say our good buddy Tripping Orc is back this week. He's
Hey, how you doing?
saying that he just got the 80s Twilight Zone series. We're both big Twilight Zone fans, so
Oh
that's awesome.
yes.
I haven't checked out the 80s one. Is that the one that's hosted by, shoot, I've already forgot his name. Um, it'll come to me here in a second, but that is awesome. I love the Twilight
Yeah.
Zone. Rod Sterling was just the man. He was so far ahead of his time.
Did you catch any of the Jordan Peele stuff?
No, I heard it had a lot of language in it, and I was just kind of
Because
like, that is not the spirit of Twilight Zone. you
no,
know,
it's definitely
Probably more like Black Mirror.
it very much is like Black Mirror. I like it, but um I also acknowledge that it's not like Twilight Zone at all. I mean, it's like Twilight Zone, but it's definitely like them trying to be black. You know what it is? Like The Expanse. Everyone's trying to be The Expanse. Everyone's trying to be Game of Thrones. You got your anthology shows like Twilight Zone and Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. They're trying to be Black Mirror. So
Yeah,
that's what that's like. Everyone's trying to be like the most popular thing. So that's that's a show for another day.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
as for
Trip and Orc,
me,
I'm Caleb. Good to meet you. Good to see you here.
um, as for me, I've been playing a lot of F-Zero 99. I'm terrible at it, but it's very addicting.
I haven't gotten around to it yet. I don't have the Nintendo Online right now.
Hmm.
I'm kind of I'm going through all my subscriptions,
Yeah.
especially now that I have my car in the shop because
Yeah.
it's gonna be fine. But I do have to do some like,
Yep.
okay, do I need Crunchyroll right now?
Yeah.
But I definitely do want to try out F-Zero 99. It's something that I've been pitching for the past 5 years. I always said, because in F-Zero X, there was like a 100-man battle mode against computers,
Hmm.
where you just go in a circle and survive. And I'm like, that's your F-Zero game right there. So this is what I've been wanting for the past 5 years or so. Charles Aidman. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Other than that, I too have been checking out some classic sci-fi. I've started watching The Prisoner, which was a 1960s British show. Um,
Not familiar.
it is the king from Braveheart,
Okay.
a much younger king from Braveheart, Longshanks. He is a secret agent who resigned, and then they knocked him out, and now he's on a mysterious island, and it's like a village of people living there, and he cannot escape. Every time he tries to escape, there's like a bubble monster that chases him, and he ends up back on the island. And the people in charge, like they all have numbers. So like the main character is called Number 6, and the administrator of the island is Number 2. But it keeps changing. Like he'll go there one day as a different Number 2, so he doesn't know what keeps happening to the other Number 2s. Um,
Is it like Lost or something? If they're on like a
yes, it is
okay,
Lost very much ripped off the show. I can see now
okay.
that every time you Lost his property, people bring up The Prisoner. There's only
Yeah,
17 episodes, so I don't know if it's gonna have like a great ending or what. We'll
it's a
see.
British show, probably not.
Probably not. It's gonna,
And
but
they go through shows faster than Netflix.
yeah, but it's really cool. It's shot really weird and edited really weird. It's 60s, so it's kind of experimental and trippy at times. So I'm really enjoying it.
Hmm.
Um, so
Which by the way, as far as seminal science fiction, um, Lost was like right before my time, so I actually have never seen it, and I probably never will. That's not one that's on my radar right now.
I love Lost asterisks.
I love Lost question mark.
I was really, really into Lost, and I was, into the theories and stuff. I had most of it figured out going into the final season, but my theories went a little bit further than the show. So there was that disappointment of I had most of it figured out, but then the way they ended it was like, you could have done this, and it would have been better. It was just kind of one of
Sure.
those things. Um, yeah, Lost is interesting. I know a lot of people are critical of Lost, saying they were just kind of making it up as they go. Um,
I mean, you've just described fiction. Everyone's making it up as they go.
yeah, but they would just, oh, here's a mystery. It was J.J. Abrams. So it was like, here's a
Sure.
mystery. J.J. Abrams, what's the mystery? Oh, I don't know what the answer is. We'll figure that out later. It's that sort of thing. So
Yeah. I've talked numerous times about how I'm not the biggest fan of JJ. I think I've liked two or three of his movies. Um, I do I do like Damon Lindelof though. So like, I
yeah, he's
I love
okay.
I
He's
it really comes down to the fact that I love Prometheus or I loved Prometheus and then uh Alien Covenant came out and kind of ruined it and uh I haven't seen Prometheus since.
yeah. So, for those who have not seen our show before or new, Caleb is my nephew. So
Hey,
there is like like a 20-year gap between us, age
something like that.
wise.
Yeah.
So our tastes can be very different. I
Yeah.
think it's what makes our show kind of unique is you're having two different generations look at stuff and just how we react differently to stuff.
And then
Um,
we also have very different ideals as well because I think even today we're going to disagree about something.
Maybe we'll see.
I already know that we disagree on who was right.
Oh, I did that just to,
Oh,
to
okay,
get at you.
okay.
Oh, because I thought you were gonna have Scott was right, so mine would say Wolverine
Well,
was
I
right.
thought about it, but then whenever I had Onion Bubs as my last nickname, and I'm like, you know what, this is Wolverine Onion Bub. Just
Yeah, I was thinking that. Real quick before we get to the comics, it is Toy Fair this weekend. They showed off some really cool gargoyle display from Disney's Gargoyles at the clock tower. They showed the first figure that I was like, you know what, I could live without that one. So, and
one day we'll do some gargoyles. I
yeah,
have not watched gargoyles since Toon Disney was a thing.
yeah, those NECA figures those gargoyle figures, they're like $35-$40 a pop. So I have to really like them to get them. Then they showed off some more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures. That line is crazy. They just keep introducing stuff, and they're even doing the Jack Kirby character from the early Ninja Turtle run. That was
Yeah,
like
you sent me
Donatello's
that.
neighbor. That is really cool. So, um, so let's talk some comic books. We're gonna do a little bit of recap today because Avengers versus X-Men. It's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So there's been during the early 2000s there were several Marvel crossovers and they kept building off of each other. And so one of those was House of M, which is where Scarlet Witch's powers, Wanda from the movies, her powers went out of control, and she made a world where mutants ruled. And then at the end, she said no more mutants, and they tried to counteract her spell when she said that, and it wiped out all mutants over the earth except for 198 mutants.
Mm-hmm.
So those other mutants just lost their powers. They were still alive, but they lost their powers. So the mutants at this point were now on the edge of extinction, and it got really dicey.
It also got really complicated because you never knew what exactly caused it because the mutants were already kind of on the verge of extinction with Grant Morrison's run anyway.
Yeah, there was always not a whole lot of mutants, and then the Grant Morrison run happened. All of a sudden, it's like mutants are everywhere, and then the Sentinels attacked Genosha. There was a lot going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think this whole No More Mutants thing, if we were looking at it from the editorial side, I think it was Joe Quesada getting back at Grant Morrison because Grant Morrison kind of did him dirty when he just up and left at the end of New X-Men. So he was like, "Oh, I'm going to undo everything that Grant Morrison did."
Yeah.
And this was not a during this time the whole thing was going on between Fox and Disney. Fox had the rights to the X-Men and Fantastic Four, and so this is close to around the time Disney bought it, or it might be right before it. It's sometime around there when they bought Marvel. And Ike Perlmutter was like, "Hey, we are not going to promote X-Men for Fox," so they started really limiting the X-Men exposure in the Marvel universe.
And no creating new mutants either. And
You know, I've heard that, but then Bendis seems to get away with creating new mutants all the time, so it's kind of like question mark. I
Bendis
guess
gets away with too much.
yeah. So anyhow, Scarlet Witch has wiped out the mutants, and so now it's like deadly serious. When a mutant dies, they all it really freaks them out, and there's
I do
mutant
have a
hunters.
question.
And, yep.
I know it's not what we're talking about, but how do you feel about House of M as like a story, as a crossover? Do you like it? Do you not? I've always been indifferent to it. I think
I read it and then kind of forgot about it. One of those
yeah.
type things where I was just like, okay, whatever. One of the cool things that comes out of House of M is Layla Miller, a character that knows everything. She later goes to join X Factor,
Mm-hmm.
And her story gets really interesting. So we might visit that on the podcast down the road.
I mean, you keep talking about X Factor, and I've never read any X Factor, so I definitely would like to go through some of that.
Yeah, that's Peter David's book. I'm a big Peter David fan.
David.
Yeah. So the X-Men are getting desperate, and then a new baby mutant is born, and that is Hope. Hope, her name ends up being Hope Summers, but Cable takes her under his care, and then Bishop, for whatever reason, starts hunting them across the time throughout time. It's a really weird character turn for Bishop. A lot of people don't like what they did to Bishop in the storyline. Um, but anywho, Hope ends up, due to time travel shenanigans, becomes a teenager, and I believe they find 5 new mutants at this point. Her powers lead to the creation of 5 more. Is that correct? It's been a while since I've read this.
I believe it is 5 more. Yes. I can't remember who they are though.
So right now there's no pun intended, there's hope that the mutants are going to come back at this point.
No. The pun is intended.
Very intended.
Whenever they're talking about Wolverine wanting to kill Hope, they mean what they're saying.
Yeah. So last month, and we'll kind of recap, we talked about X-Men Schism, where Wolverine and Cyclops had a falling out. And basically Cyclops thought that this was the survival of the mutant species. So everybody needs to learn to fight, even the kids. Everybody has to be put on the front line and have to kill. Wolverine surprisingly did not like this, so he left, formed his own school. And so the X-Men team kind of split into 2. You have Cyclops' group that's fighting for the survival of the mutants.
And they're on Utopia.
And they're on Utopia. And Wolverine's school, where he's training the new kids.
And they're North New York. It's the same building, right? It's just
it's the same. School. It's the same grounds that the original X-Men mansion was on.
It's just the Jean Grey school instead.
Yeah. So we talked last month about Wolverine and the X-Men, the first few issues, but let's talk about A versus X now. This starts with the Phoenix Force is returning to the Earth. So Cyclops gets all excited because he's like, the Phoenix is coming back. This creature of rebirth, that it's going to restart the mutant race. The Avengers see this as, oh, we're about to get the Dark Phoenix again. Jean Grey almost, went berserk and destroyed everything. Anytime the Phoenix Force shows up, people cannot control it. It's a bad, bad thing. And
you know what's funny about this? It opens the same way that Infinity Gauntlet opens.
Yeah. It definitely does. I noticed that with Nova crashing to the Earth, and then Infinity Gauntlet opens with the Hulk crashing to the Earth. Yeah.
No, it was Silver Surfer, and it was.
Oh, I'm thinking of the movie. I'm thinking of Infinity War. Yeah. You're right. It wasn't
either way. They keep doing it.
Yeah, they keep doing the same thing over and over and over. Yeah. So everybody thinks that the Phoenix Force is here for Hope. So Captain America wants to take Hope into custody for her protection.
Right. Protective custody. They're not going to arrest her or anything. They're going to protect her. As he claims.
Cyclops is basically like, get off my island. We're not doing this.
As he should.
And we'll talk about this at the end, but it's just kind of one of those stories where if the Avengers had just done nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
we'll get there at the end.
This is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. This whole thing is basically Tony's fault. We'll get to that here in a minute. But
what else's fault is Civil War.
Yeah, I have said this several times. Ignore the movie version. I hate Iron Man. Iron Man's like the worst character.
You know what it is though, because and keep in mind, I love I believe it's Matt Fraction's Iron Man. I love that. At least until it leads into Civil War. But yeah, Iron Man just kind of like, he's a jerk, but not fun like Robert Downey Jr. is.
Yeah, and I get it. It's all about the human arrogance and how he keeps just screwing everything up. But at the same time, it's just like,
At the
it
same
just,
time, this is a comic book. It's supposed to be entertainment.
yeah, he just gets to me.
I think that's one thing that we forget about a lot is that yes, absolutely, absolutely. He did suck into the movies.
And when that movie came out, I mean, he was a D-list character in the comic books. That movie was not supposed to be successful, and it was all due to Robert Downey Jr.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, definitely, definitely.
so
But um, yeah, I just we always are always like, oh, it's realistic that his character would act like that, blah blah blah. It's still supposed to be entertainment and fun, in a way, you
yeah.
know. So
So let's talk real quick about Wolverine's role in this. He is an Avenger also at during this time in the comic books.
as
So
this was going on, how did you feel about that? How'd Spider-Man and Wolverine were both Avengers at this point, and it felt weird. How did you feel about Wolverine?
I had read a bunch of that Avenger stuff of Wolverine, so I'm used to him being an Avenger. I still
Well, I
think
mean,
it's
like, I meant like, but like at the time as well. Like, were you reserved or? Because like, I personally am not a fan of it.
I don't mind if Wolverine's an Avenger, but he can't be an X-Man at the same time. He
I
can't be
don't.
on 3 or 4 teams at the same time. That annoys me.
Here's the thing. I don't think that the Marvel universe makes sense until the end of this story.
Well, we haven't read, or I don't know if you've read Jason Aaron's Wolverine book, where it's just Wolverine, and
No.
he has done backup stories of what like a month of Wolverine's life looks like. So it's like Monday he's on the Avengers, Tuesday he's with X Force, Wednesday he's with X Men, Thursday, and it's just really dumb.
I
And
kind
so
of
he,
imagine that's what Batman's like too.
yeah, and it, I liked the old Marvel universe, like around the time of the original Secret Wars, where they were very strict about what every character was that month, and you couldn't have like so and so in 30 different places without mentioning that. Oh, by the way, Spider Man's in the Savage Land this month, and it would affect all the books that month. I liked it when it was more close knit, and not like, oh, Spider Man's in 50 places this month. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
There are too. You know what it is? It's not that there are too many characters or characters on too many teams. I just think that there are too many books.
There's too many books, and none of the writers are talking to each other.
Yes.
And that's an editorial problem that we could really rip into current Marvel. But well, let's get back to this story.
No, we're talking about good Marvel right now.
Yeah. Um, so there's a big confrontation at Utopia, and then Cyclops and them go on the run. I think Hope's missing at this point. Um,
Yeah. No, she's still on Utopia.
but Cyclops visits Wolverine's school, and so a bunch of the X-Men that are teaching at Wolverine school at this point side with Cyclops. Is that right? I might be getting parts of the story mixed up because things keep repeating.
Yes, yeah. No, that's that. So that's the one thing I just hate about like tie-in issues.
Yeah,
Is
it gets confusing what parts the tie-ins take place in the story.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, at one point the like Iceman and Angel, and I want to say Rachel, end up showing teaming up with Cyclops. Um, and so they're all trying to find Hope, and Hope rigs it so that her signal's popping up all over the world. So everybody splits up to try to figure out where the real Hope is. So we get a lot of X-Men versus Avengers fights at these different locations.
Yeah.
And then Wolverine, though, I believe, figures out where the real Hope is. Or she finds Wolverine. I cannot remember. I'm sorry. I read this like 2 weeks ago, so my brain is, and it was a lot that I was reading.
No, yeah, definitely. We read a lot. over over the past month. Uh, I for some reason I was under the impression that Captain America finds her.
It may be. I do remember that at some point, the Hope and Wolverine find each other in the snow. Like they throw Wolverine off the jet in the Savage Land, the snow, and then Hope finds him.
Right, right.
Anywho, the point is that Wolverine and Hope end up together, and they are on the run. And then the Phoenix Force is coming to the Earth, and it's destroying all these planets along the way. And at some point, everybody ends up on the moon, and Iron Man and his group blast the Phoenix Force, and it splits into different pieces,
Five shards.
5 shards. And so Cyclops, Namor, Colossus, Emma, and who am I
Magic.
forgetting? Magic get powers of the Phoenix, become the Phoenix Five.
And I'll just go ahead and say I love the Phoenix Five. I want to go ahead and get this out of the way because this is a discussion, recap, summary, also a review. This is actually my second favorite Marvel crossover story. I love this story.
And I'll say I hate the Phoenix Force. Like I like the original story, but it gets used too much. But having read this for the first time, this wasn't bad. This was pretty good.
Which, fun fact, you thought that you had read this before, and then
I thought I had. I really did. But what it is we'll get to it in the Wolverine, the X-Men issues. They kind of recap what happens at the end. So I had all that in my head, and I'd probably read spoilers somewhere, and so my brain said, "Oh yeah, we read that." Yeah. So once they get the powers of the Phoenix, they basically start rebuilding the world, making it a perfect planet.
Yeah, they are actually doing good things.
Yeah, and the Avengers are like, "We must stop them." It's kind of, and
well, it's not the Avengers; it's the White House.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they're putting pressure on them, definitely.
Yeah, this is definitely like, oh no, they're providing free energy, food, and water to people.
And they're
How are we supposed to
disarming
make
nations.
money?
Yeah,
How are we supposed to make money now?
Yeah. But then it starts getting weird. They start taking Avengers prisoner. Like they have like a I guess it's on Utopia. It's not Utopia. It's Inferno, where they actually end up moving them eventually, holding them.
Oh yeah.
So that becomes a thing where they're like, if you disagree with them, they're imprisoning you, and
yeah, in a way, they're a nicer Justice Lords.
yeah. But who's the first one to get defeated? Was it Namor?
Yes.
Namor.
Which, by the way, I hate Namor. I always will.
Namor at one point just decides he's going to go off on Wakanda and destroy them, because him and Black Panther have a lot of beef. And so he like floods Wakanda, and they end up. I really should have reread these right before this, because this was 2 weeks ago. They do end up defeating Namor, and when one of these guys is defeated, the power goes to the other Phoenix 5 members.
Yeah, it's kind of like what's that one movie you had me watch?
The One.
Well, there's so The One and Highlander. Those two.
Highlander, yes, yeah. It's definitely like Highlander.
Which, I mean, it's funny because Act 3 is called "There Can Only Be One." so they definitely knew the Highlander reference in this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they defeat Namor. But then Scarlet Witch just kind of bodies Magic.
Yeah, Scarlet Witch is in this lot, and then there's a lot of Iron Fist stuff where they end up taking Hope to his mystical land of, is it Kunlun? Is that what it's called?
Kunlun, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently this has happened before in the past where the Phoenix Force has come to the Earth, and the dragon held it back that they have in Kunlun. So they are trying to prepare Hope for what's to come. Um, so
Which
this is
I think is very. I think that's a lot of fun.
yeah,
Uh,
tying it into Iron Fist. I thought that was pretty cool.
and if you were to do this in like your modern day movies, it would probably be Shang-Chi taking them to the one forest place in the movie.
Yeah. Um, so I thought this is where the story for me got really interesting.
Okay.
They figure out that the prisoners, the Avenger prisoners, are being held in uh, what's it called? It's not Inferno. It's Limbo. Limbo's where they're being held. Um, and Spider-Man tells Hope. Hope's like, I feel like I'm doing nothing. I'm here twiddling my thumbs. And he said, "Hey, you're an Avenger, and when the time comes, your moment will come. You'll know when your time comes. You'll make your move." And so Spider-Man goes on this mission, and they're freeing all these Avengers, but then Colossus and Magic show up, and Spider-Man tells them, "Tell Hope that it was my time to make my move," and he he kind of blocks off their path from the others, and so Spider-Man stands up alone against Colossus and Magic, and they just beat the mess out of him.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man's
I'm a fan of the Spider-Man. I like him.
yeah, and he ends up what he does is he gets Colossus and Magic arguing with each other, so they end up fighting amongst themselves, and they end up their power leaves both of them because they start fighting each other. Um, but it's really cool. I love it when Spider-Man is like way in over his head, and he's still going to do the right thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what makes him Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's the great power thing, and it's so cool here. Yeah, this was my favorite part of the crossover.
Okay,
Um,
okay. Well, we're gonna get to my favorite part here soon. But yeah, this
yeah,
is definitely one of them. It reminds you that Bendis knows how to write Spider-Man.
yeah, and this is written by I think like five different writers.
Yeah, it's like Bendis, Fraction.
I think Brubaker maybe
Who else is
was
on
he
this?
may have been gone. Jason
Brubaker
Aaron,
and Hickman. Hickman's on this too.
yeah, yeah. So
So it's people that I like / tolerate. So
yeah, and I guess out of the five we just listed, I think the only one left is Hickman. They're still at Marvel. Modern Marvel is
and
just a
even
mess.
then, I don't know if Hickman's all there. I think.
Yeah, his ideas are way out there sometime, and sometimes I think he's kind of to a point where he's just like, I'm going to cash all the checks I can with Marvel, make my money, and get out of here.
I am interested in his new Ultimate Universe.
Have you been reading the
Because
spoilers on that?
no, is it
It's a
is it
whole side thing. Go to Wikipedia, read the plot points to what's been going on. It's pretty
is it
weird.
is it good?
I don't know. It's like an alternate world where he prevented most of the heroes from becoming heroes, and now there's like Kang the Conqueror showed up, and now he's going to war with Kang. The Maker has, so it's the Maker versus Kang, and it's interesting.
Oh, so this is kind of like so this is like Ultimate Invasion is their answer to like the DC Rebirth with
Yeah, the Maker's trying to remake the Ultimate Universe, but make it his way or something. And
Doomsday Clock. That's what I was trying to think of. I couldn't even think of it.
yeah,
So yeah, so I get the Maker being, you know what, the Maker kind of representing Doctor Manhattan. I can kind of see it.
I like to just see somebody who has only seen like the superhero movies come in and listen to us talk. It must sound like complete gibberish.
Oh yeah, the Maker being
But
the evil version of or the ultimate version of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, who went insane, and then there's the Council of Reeds, which of course would then lead to the Council of Ricks in Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
I have never seen an episode of Rick and Morty. I just know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to pick up Ultimate Invasion. I love the Ultimate Universe so much. So, anyway,
so we're down to the final two Phoenix members: Emma Frost, the White Queen, and Cyclops. And most of the X-Men have now turned on Cyclops and Emma. They're like, "Hey, this is not cool what you all are doing," and they bring in the big gun, Professor Xavier. And Xavier's like, "This is wrong, Scott. You got to quit this. I taught you better than this." And I can't
Scott
remember.
He says,
Go ahead.
"You are not my father." I love it.
Yeah, this is the Cyclops during this time period is so interesting, because he's kind of had two teachers at this point. It's been Xavier and it's been Magneto, really, and he's kind of choosing this path in between them. It's very interesting.
Mhm. So, what this is right here, because at this point they take out Emma, and so Cyclops becomes the Phoenix essentially.
Yeah,
and he kills Xavier.
yeah,
And he kills him. I mean, he's dead until what, like 2018, something like that. And this is 2012.
yeah. I'm not gonna get into how they brought him back and all the Phantom X nonsense and all
Yeah,
that.
I still don't get it. But we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we're gonna go that far.
No. We'll get to the end of Jason Aaron's Wolverine X-Men. We're gonna stop. Hard stop.
So what this represents, and I think we all kind of go through this. I think this is actually a very real moment. Not necessarily literally murdering your father, but I do think that there is a point when we're young. And it happens in different points, whether you're a teenager, maybe you're a young adult. You gotta come to grips and you find out the fact that your parents don't know everything. Your parents are not these almighty superheroes. They're just as clueless as you are.
Yeah, I think when you're a kid, adults are kind of mystifying. You're like, oh, these adults, they run the world, they know everything. And then you get older, you're like, oh, these are just kids that had to grow up. They don't know nothing.
Yeah. And so this Cyclops is having to realize this about Xavier. And once he, you have this very real heartbreak that Cyclops goes through because of how much Xavier has hurt him. Plus that Phoenix Force, like, completely taking over him. I mean, yeah, he kills him. He kills him dead.
Yeah, and Cyclops was like, I have to save the mutants no matter what. And then the Phoenix Force is just amplifying that to the extreme, that no matter what. And even if it means killing Xavier, I have to bring the mutants back. And so then we get the final battle. And for whatever reason, my brain is blanking on what happens from this point. So Caleb, take it away.
So at this point, Hope comes back from Kunlun and goes up against Cyclops. They take him out, and the Phoenix Force starts to embody Hope. And using her training from Kunlun, the dragon actually helps her control and absorb the Phoenix Force. So then I don't exactly know how it works, but there's like this wave that kind of brings back mutants.
Yeah, she kind of brings back mutants, but then doesn't she release the power at the end?
Yes. Yeah, she doesn't stay the Phoenix. But yeah, this is it essentially it ends with the mutants coming back and Captain America realizing man, this is not right. We have ignored the mutants for too long. It is time for you to get your all's due.
Yeah. So Tripping
Which
Gork has a quote for us here. Calvin Hobbes quote: "My parents are the two stupidest people on this planet, and just my luck, they had me."
right?
I love Calvin Hobbes. It's so
Yeah,
brilliant.
that is right.
So from this point, Cyclops gets taken into custody. The Uncanny Avengers are formed, and
We did, which by the way, we didn't read this. I found this right here. This is from the AVX Consequences, which we didn't read this, but this is interesting. Your school will now have new mutant students, and that is thanks to me.
yeah, what's great about this story is Cyclops is still like, yeah, I was still right, even though I, Xavier died, I was still right.
It has nothing to do with like you have the phrase Cyclops did nothing wrong. No, he did plenty wrong, but at the end of the day, Cyclops was right.
Yeah. There used to be a lot of T-shirts. Magneto was right, but yeah, I like the
No,
Cyclops was right shirt.
I don't think Magneto was right. I think Cyclops was right.
Yeah, and it's a shame that again Disney really screws over this story going forward. I mean, it's interesting for a while when Bendis is writing this, but spoilers, eventually the Inhumans will enter the picture, and the X-Men will have a big fight with Inhumans, and
that's a horrible story.
And Cyclops, I believe, dies during that story, or he may die during Secret Wars. It's very unclear what happens, but at some point, Cyclops is removed from the map, and we never really get the conclusion to the story.
It is Inhumans versus X-Men.
Yeah, he dies there, but I think also he gets brought back to life during Secret Wars and then dies again. Something about a Phoenix egg. It's whatever. It doesn't matter.
And then Gold Balls comes in and just resurrects everybody.
Yeah, and again, I'm sure confusing everybody who's never played any of this.
Yeah, there's a superhero called Gold Balls, and it's not what you think.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love this story so much. I love Avengers versus X-Men.
I thought this was, I'd always kind of overlooked this, like, oh, it's just Avengers and X-Men fighting for 12 issues, but no, this was a really good story.
No, I mean, it's not just Avengers and X. So there is a fight book, which is Avengers versus X-Men versus is like the subtitle. That very much is the fight book. That's what Hickman pitches it as, or Bendis. I think that's what he pitched it as. But no, this is about superheroes. This is about like the superheroes that people love finally standing up for mutants as they should have from the very beginning.
Yeah, because a lot of times the mutants have been left out of crossovers or just ignored by the other superheroes, and
it's one of those things where, like, so the world hates mutants, and other superheroes, they're like, I'm not going to attack you, but I'm just going to ignore you so I don't have to deal with the more moral ramifications. This is where Captain America finally stands up and says, what we have done is wrong.
Yeah. So during all of this, the Wolverine and the X-Men book had some tie-in issues where they're telling some of the stories that were left out of this. So I'm not sure what order you have these in.
So I have, unfortunately, with a book like with Avengers versus X-Men, I could pretty much find whatever I wanted. Wolverine and the X-Men, not as much. So like I found kind of a picture of Colossus and Kitty's date, Kid Gladiator doing his thing, and then I found the dance, and that was kind of it.
Okay. So the Shi'ar, if you don't know, some of our viewers, if you don't know, they are very much tied to the Phoenix Force. They were the ones that put Jean Grey on trial when she was affected by the Phoenix, and they know what the Phoenix can do. So they are terrified of the Phoenix. So the Gladiator, he activates the Phoenix, or no, I'm sorry, not the Phoenix, the Shi'ar Death Commandos to go deal with Hope, to go deal with um, the Phoenix, and he orders his son, Kid Gladiator, who's a student at Xavier or at Wolverine school, to be evacuated from the planet, and he ends up running off and joining the fight. So
This
then
is where that's where I was. I've been indifferent to Kid Gladiator so far. This is where I liked him.
Yeah, Kid Gladiator is great. He's a jerk. He just wants to punch things, and he acts like he hates the school. But as soon as they're like, "Oh, you gotta go back to Shi'ar," he's like, "But I don't want to go." I'll. He doesn't say it out loud, but he's going to miss all of this. He really loves the school.
I don't know if we've said this out loud, but this book in particular, because my experience with this story arc is with Uncanny X-Men. Whenever the schism happened, I followed Cyclops, you followed Wolverine. Mm-hmm. Wolverine side, this is so much like and I don't mean this as a dig, mm-hmm. but it is kind of like it's almost like a teen drama, mm-hmm. or like kind of like I don't mean that as a
it's
dig.
like the original New Mutants book or Generation X was.
Yeah. Like if CW could make something good.
Yeah, if you want to read X-Men stories, go read Cyclops' book. But if you want to read like teen drama, this is where you want to go.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you know much about Gladiator? How his powers work and stuff?
No, not at all.
His powers are all confidence based. So as long as he thinks he can beat you, he can beat you. But the second you make him doubt his power set, he will lose.
You know who's like that? So, and I'm going to get you to read at least the first 3 arcs eventually. In Tom King's Batman, the first 3 arcs open with I Am Gotham, I Am Suicide, and I Am Bane. Mm-hmm. And so I Am Gotham, there's actually a superhero named Gotham, and mm-hmm. his little sister's Gotham Girl. Mm-hmm. Exactly like that.
Okay.
Yeah, those exact powers. Which obviously, I'm not saying that Gotham came second, so Gladiator's obviously first, but no, I know exactly what you're talking about. You explained to me like that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's Gotham.
Yeah, so we might get some of these stories a little out of order, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. Kid Gladiator, he has a bodyguard. What is her name? Is it it's Warbird. She is his bodyguard, and so she was ordered to get him off the planet. Well, he runs away, and so Gladiator himself shows up, and at some point Gladiator has to fight the Phoenix 5, and he just gets
he gets wrecked.
He gets wrecked, and that's kind of when Kid Gladiator's like, oh crap, I should have listened to Dad. I screwed up. So tearfully he leaves with his dad at that point, and he's gone from the book for a while. He will return eventually.
That's good, because I just started to like him.
yeah. But Warbird, she's like, oh well, I'm going back home to Shi'ar, and they're like, no, you're done. You're staying here on Earth. And we get to see her past, where she was raised to be this, assassin commando in the Shi'ar Empire, but she really just liked to draw and paint things, and that's a no-no in their society. And so she is sent to wipe out a terrorist cell, and one of the kids in the terrorist cell is drawing pictures, and she feels bad for the kid and lets the kid live. So she gets in trouble for that. So that's why she's in charge of Kid Gladiator. So we'll see a lot more of her now that she has been exiled to Earth. She becomes like their art teacher at the school. So I think she's a fun character that's kind of been forgotten since Jason Aaron's not writing this anymore. But she does pop up from time to time. So
I mean, pretty much everyone in this has been forgotten.
I know, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You don't get any Kid Omega. Genesis isn't a thing.
Well, Kid Omega, he does. He's all over the X Men books, but I think he's like the only one from this book that's everywhere.
Yes, but he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, they just. I feel like, and we'll get there when we get to the end of this run. He grows as a character, and then they kind of reset him back to a jerk in the other books.
Yeah.
You know. We also see what the Hellfire Club is up to, or the Hellfire Brats, the little kids that took
Brats,
over.
yeah.
That took over. They're basically raking in the dough, selling Sentinels to everybody, and the Phoenix Five confront them and throw them all in jail. And we then get flashbacks of how he convinced the Hellfire Club to let him be their leader, Kilgore, Kildare, whatever his name is.
Cade Kilgore.
Yeah.
Kilgore.
He then immediately breaks out of jail because he's just a master manipulator. And
here's the thing. So I don't know what like the mass public thinks of this character. I find Cade Kilgore to be immensely entertaining.
The X community hates the Hellfire Brats with a passion.
Really?
I love them. I think they're great.
I think it's. I mean, like, I guess if you're trying to take this seriously, then sure. But like I said, this is a teen drama.
Yeah, it is fun having villains that Wolverine cannot punch because they're little kids, and he's just like, I don't know what to do.
Well, and I said this, last time we were talking about Wolverine and the X-Men. These are your Teen Titans, and the Hellfire Brats are the Hive Five.
Yeah. So the Hellfire Brats, they escape, and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna. What's next on the agenda? Oh, we're targeting the school again. So we'll leave that as a ... for right now. We'll return to that story here in a minute. Colossus shows up at the school, decides that he's going to have a date with Kitty as he has the Phoenix powers. Oh, there's our Hellfire Brats. Go back to the Hellfire Brats real quick.
There it is.
Yeah, if you don't mind, go back to the Hellfire Brats for. I'm glad you're back. Yeah, I'm glad you're back this week because I was having so much trouble with the slideshow. I'd never done the slideshow, and I was like,
I love them so much.
I think they're really fun. The little girl whose name slips my mind, she's just she's like Elmira from Tiny Toons, where she likes pets, but she kills all the pets.
Did you ever? So this is that generational gap that we were talking about. This is where it'll come into play. Did you ever like watch any Kids Next Door? Or
a little bit.
So I mean, just from this picture right here, this is like the rated T for teen, delightful children from down the lane.
Oh yeah, the weird kids, that have the weird father and all that,
yeah, and they're always in a group of 5 and they can't split up.
Yeah. So anyhow, this is the Hellfire Brats. If people didn't know, so okay, we can go back to Colossus and Kitty.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, how Colossus and Kitty is kind of like not the final ship for you, right?
Yeah, I'd said that Colossus and Kitty, that's kind of like your high school relationship, and it was young love, and now they've both kind of moved on. And in this book, we see that she's starting to date Iceman, which is a whole nother can of worms, but I like Iceman and Kitty as a couple. I don't know how you feel about them, but I think they're a fun couple.
I don't know too much about it, honestly. This is my first time reading it.
Yeah. But Colossus shows up at the school and he's like, oh, I could do anything so I can win back Kitty's heart. And she starts to reject his advances, and then he gets more and more angry. And he's like, I'm just going to destroy that school. It's that school standing between us and stuff. And
this is such a... this shows you that, like, The way that Jason Aaron writes Colossus is like the jock who peaked in high school.
Yeah, he's your Uncle Rico.
I used to throw pigskin across mountain.
Across the Ukraine, I threw the pigskin. Oh, yeah. So this is a fun issue where
This was.
where the basically the war comes to their front doorstep, and how do you deal with it? And
Yeah, I almost wish that because I read AVX and then I read the tie-in issues. I kind of wish I had figured out where they fall in, because like these issues are like silly and fun. It would have been a nice
palate
break,
cleanser,
or like a break between all the grim dark, you know? Because
yeah.
I'm a big believer in, you know, and of course it depends on what you're going for, but in superheroes and in fun in stuff that's typically fun, whenever you go dark, you have to have something to counteract it.
Yeah. Yeah, they do that a lot on like Full Metal Alchemist or even One Piece. It'll be real lighthearted, and they'll hit you with that sucker punch, and they'll
Yeah,
kind of go
that's
back and forth.
that's how Star Wars is pretty much all the time.
Yeah. All right. So there's this one weird chapter that has nothing to do with Avengers versus X-Men that just appears out of nowhere, and that's the Dupe chapter.
Yeah, and I could not find anything with Dupe.
You couldn't find any pictures of Dupe? Let me find a picture of
I
Dupe.
mean, I could find a picture of Dupe. I just couldn't find what you were looking for.
Okay. Because a lot of our listeners probably have no clue who Dupe is.
Just know that if James Gunn was to ever make an X-Men movie, Dupe would be on the team.
Oh, it would.
I think he said that before.
Yeah. He's like a floating jelly bean that can eat anything. Would that be an accurate description
It's
of
like
him?
a Katamari, yeah.
He speaks this weird dupe language that nobody can understand.
I am Dupe.
Yeah. Wolverine, I guess, understands him. But he's like indestructible and like a lover, like people, like he can seduce people. It's weird. Dupe is a weird joke character.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. So this is James Gunn's X-Men Dream Team. Dupe,
Yeah.
Phantom X,
Yeah.
Kitty, Storm, and Wolverine.
That'd be a great movie. I'd watch it. But it's kind of like, why is Dupe here? And he's there to protect the school from threats that no one else would see coming, I guess would be the way to describe it. So like the school board wants to shut down the school, so he went to the school board and seduced all the detractors and slept with them and got them to change their votes. Some evil, we're on YouTube, so we gotta be careful. Evil German bowler league of destruction was going to destroy the school, and he destroyed the Hydra-esque bowlers. Yeah, again, we can't use that word, but he fought all them. He gets into some shenanigans with Howard the Duck. Just all the weird stuff. He's there. He's at one point he's having dinner with Sabretooth, and they're talking about the school and stuff, and just all kinds of crazy stuff that Dupe is doing. And you think he's just there doing nothing, but he is constantly putting his life on the line to protect the school. And he's like exhausted, and Wolverine knows what he's doing, but no one else at the school knows what he's doing. So kind of a wacky, fun issue, but it's a lot of fun, especially if you like Ecstatics, where Dupe is originally from. This was a fun issue.
Yeah, this was very much like a. It's like it's almost like the I Am Groot shorts on Disney Plus, like just happening in the middle of a Guardians movie.
Yeah, it's weird. It's but yeah, this was just a fun issue. It one of the funniest parts is Wolverine's trying to recruit him, and he doesn't want any part of it. Like Dupe's at a strip club, and Wolverine's like, "Come on, you gotta come to school." He's like, "No," and so he's doing all this stuff for him, and so finally, Dupe has Wolverine dress up as Cyclops and stab himself in the face several times. It is so wacky. Um, so yeah, Dupe is great. Ecstatics is great. I definitely recommend that book. If you like the joke in Deadpool 2 about the X Force team, that is all from Ecstatics. So, um, all right. So we'll move on from Dupe. So as the final battle is happening between the Avengers and the X Men, they decide it's time to get all the students' minds off the battle. So they have a dance at the school, an end of the world dance. And Heidi, we haven't really talked about tonight. Heidi was one of the young mutants that was forced to fight during Schism, and she had to kill some people. So ever since then, she has been very unstable.
Which I believe, now that you mentioned it, I believe she was one of the five.
Yeah, she's one of the five lights that Hope originally created, one of the five new mutants. Um, but she's just been unstable, thinking she's going to hell because she killed somebody, and she thinks, "Oh, we're X Men, so this is what we do: we kill." And so Wolverine's been trying to help her. Um, so we see that her behavior really changes here. She starts laughing at stuff. She's like, "We're all going to hell, so we might as well enjoy it." So she's gonna go to the dance and dance with Kid Omega and stuff. And so Brew, the little brood that we all love, he's like, "There's something wrong here." And Heidi's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to this new church, and they've really straightened me out, and it's great." So Brew wants to go to the dance with Heidi, but he sees, I believe he sees her dancing with Kid Omega, and I believe they kiss. Am I making that up, or did that happen?
No, yeah, that happened. What I want to mention, because I don't think that we had this in the previous. I love the way that Brew dresses, just in general.
Oh
Like
yeah,
he got the suit and tie, and then he looks like Harry Potter, but he's a Brood.
yeah. Brew is one of my favorite characters. Um, I adore Brew, and let's see. Let me find a quick picture of him. Do. That's not the exact picture, but it'll do. Um, but yeah, Brew is great because Brood are like xenomorphs. They're bloodthirsty aliens, and then he's a mutant one. He's intelligent. And he's so innocent. He's adorable. He's in love with Heidi. He wants to take her to the dance, and he sees that she's dancing with Kid Omega. So he wanders off to the church and is confronted by the priest, and it's called like the Church of Damnation or something.
That I don't remember, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's clear that there's something wrong here, and Brew immediately senses that this priest is not human, and he rips off the priest's head. It's a robot, and we find out that this is a church that's been set up by the Hellfire Brats. The one Hellfire Brat that's a descendant of Frankenstein has built the priest, and they're like, "Oh, you saw too much," and they pull a gun on Brew. Um,
And Kilgore just pops him in the face.
yeah, it's not like he just shoots him straight up in the face. It's shocking. It is horrifying because Brew is such a innocent, beloved character, and as at the school, they are seeing that the lights are coming on from across the globe as more mutants are popping up on Cerebro. And while they're distracted by that, you see Brew's light go out at the church. And And then it says the end of year 1, and we're going into year 2 of the school. And what'd you think?
I liked it. So I mean, Avengers versus X-Men, which I know that we're reading this because of Wolverine and X-Men, but anytime I get to read Avengers versus X-Men, I just love it. Um, and I really do enjoy Wolverine and the X-Men. Like I said, and for those who don't know, I come from a DC background, and so previously we had read through Uncanny X-Force by Remender. Is that who it
Yes,
was?
Rick Remender. Yes.
And so that was very much a Suicide Squad feel to me. I mean, I feel right at home with this as a Teen Titans book.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is fun that I think Jason Aaron does a good job of balancing what's going on at Avengers vs. X-Men with what's going on at the school. It ties in really well together.
Mm-hmm.
These issues do.
Yeah. I think a lot of times X-Men stories forget that this is also a school.
Yeah, and a lot of times tie-in issues to crossovers are terrible. I thought all these tie-in issues were great.
Oh yeah.
Just really well done. Yeah. So where do you think all this is going now? That Brew is.
Yeah, I've no idea. Like, so you know what it is? I don't know enough about the Brood to know what a gunshot wound will do to him.
Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna read. I think it's like volumes. I think there's 8 volumes of. I think we could just finish up Wolverine the X-Men next month.
You think so?
Because 3 of those issues are Battle of the Atom or whatever it's called. What's that book called? The crossover.
Battle of the Atom, yeah.
We'll probably skip those issues.
Thank you.
Because Battle of the Atom really doesn't have anything to do with the school, other than the 5 X-Men from the 60s are back. So next month we will skip those, and I think we can just finish up the Avengers, the Wolverine the X-Men run. So that show will be probably the first or second week in November. That's usually when we do our comic book show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that'll probably be November 5th.
Yeah, so if you want to read along at home, this is Wolverine the X-Men by Jason Aaron. You can read these on the Marvel Unlimited app. That does require a subscription, or you can probably find these at Half Price Books or wherever. All right, so next week we are going to do our video game show, and it's going to be. Previously, we did a fantasy roster about if they were doing a Disney Smash Brothers. Who we would want in a Disney Smash Brothers game. So we're going to do a similar show next week. We're going to do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Brothers. We're going to make a roster of 25 characters here live on air, and we'll let the chat participate if they have any suggestions.
I really do enjoy these. So
yeah, I think these are a lot of fun. So yeah, next week we'll discuss our dream game of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Brothers. There was a game.
This is for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up 2 is what we're doing.
Right? Yeah, basically, because Ubisoft did do a game like this back in the day, but they put like a bunch of raving rabbits in it and stuff. It was really weird.
Well, so it was based off of the TMNT movie that came out at the time, and then Rayman Raving Rabbids had just come out.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot. I liked that game.
But it could have been so much more.
It could have been more. Yes. It was very much a movie tie-in game more than anything.
Yeah. So we'll be having that discussion next Sunday at 4:00 Eastern, right here on YouTube. So we hope that you will subscribe to our channel. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Please share this to your friends. Let them know that we discuss pop culture. We try to do a comic book show, video game show, movie show, and TV show every month.
And then 5th week is like a wild card.
Yeah. So that's our schedule for right now. We could always change it, but
yeah. And for those of you who go by the 5th show, I know we've only touched on this. I'd really like to do Castlevania Nocturne for the 5th show since it's like a day before Halloween.
Okay, yeah, we'll figure that out. But until next time, I've been Final Monkey,
And I'm Caleb.
and we'll hope we'll see you next time in the Shark Pond. See ya.
See ya.